All right, on this episode of Bowks Talking Bouts, excited to be talking to an individual who's going to be competing at Rumble in the Cage 63. We've got that Rumble in the Cage featherweight championship being contested when Tim Tamaki and Josh Kwiatkowski step into the cage, and happy to be talking to Josh on today's show. How's your day going so far, man? Getting in some good training there?
I just trained at WKX in the morning, and then I just taught a gi class.
Oh, nice. So sounds like a good enough day so far. Sounds like it's progressing well. How's the rest of the day looking schedule-wise?
I have an easy night. I just have a few hours coaching at a gym I teach at called Animal Boxing and MMA.
Well, that must be cool then, like imparting technique to certain people who are kind of on the come up, on their own rise with it. I would think it would refine your own understanding of the basics and the technique, just, teaching people. I've heard different fighters kind of talk about that.
Yeah, it's just nice being able to teach others what I'm working on currently, or just trying to keep it fresh. And just really, when I help people that are learning, it kind of reminds me of my own things that I have to work on. So it's a nice transition.
Yeah, and this next one is an interesting fight because I was seeing on the social media post that it's actually coinciding with your birthday there. Has this ever happened before in the career? Like, did you kind of... were you even thinking of it when the bout offer first came your way, or like how did that all kind of come about? Because that's kind of cool.
So basically, after the Maxine Saucier fight, it was one of those fights where it took me a while to watch, because sometimes your brain perceives the fight differently than it actually was, and then when I went back and watched it, I was like, it was so much closer than I actually had thought, and a few small tweaks, and it could have been a win, right? But it was a few days after the fight, and I got a message from Lee, and I was like, obviously not happy. I take fighting extremely serious, so every loss hurts. And when I seen that I was offered the title fight against him, an OG in Canadian MMA, and then I seen the day, I just took it as a sign from the fight gods that it was the right move. And then I called my coaches, and we were all excited to take the fight. So I was so really happy.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on the last fight there because I saw you had a post on Instagram about it, and it seemed like initially like it was a fairly deflating sort of experience as you talked about like taking the losses hard and whatnot, but you found like upon, I guess, like looking at it and kind of like, getting that retrospective kind of look at it like through the lens of just kind of studying the tape, like you felt there was far more parity to it. Like, do you feel better about that fight in a certain sense? Like, I guess what were the main takeaways and learning experiences from that last one?
When I rewatched that fight, I just seen some technical things that my coaches were saying in between rounds, and then after the fight, me and my coach Jay Johnson, my striking coach, just saw things in the film that small tweaks and a little bit more times of pressure against the cage, or when Lisa's back was against the cage, and it could have been a lot different fight. But with every loss, like, you can take it bad or you can use it to motivate you, and it just lit a fire under my butt. And I'm grateful, like, even though I've lost a couple fights here in a row, there's been fights that were just razor thin. There was a fight that I literally was winning 14 minutes of the fight, and then I lost in the dying second. So despite my record, despite the outcomes of a few fights, I still feel like every day I'm getting better and better, and I'm fighting better competition, and to date I feel like this is the best version of myself that I've ever seen, and I can see it in the gym, I can see it in my rounds every day, and I feel it. I know I belong in fighting, and I know I'm determined, and despite my losses, I know this is what I'm meant to do. So I just got to keep training. I got to keep filling in those holes, and everyone that stands across from me when they fight me knows that they're in for a fight. So
yeah, I guess it's just about like galvanizing yourself from those different moments and whatnot. Like I saw in that post, you made a comment saying like you love to fight, but wouldn't necessarily like wish this life on anyone, just because it's like such an arduous kind of grinding kind of experience, but just seems very interwoven into who you are. You were saying I'd stop if I could, but I don't fight because I want to. Like, what is it in you that you think compels you to fight? Like what is it that drives you to do this with the fervor that you do?
I just got a fire inside me, and even ever since I was like the youngest memories I have, I've been trying to fight people, and I've never liked to pick easy fights. I like to pick fights that people don't think I'm going to win. And even as a kid, I remember fighting a 19-year-old when I was like 15, and obviously didn't go my way. And that 19-year-old looked at me after and was like, "You're crazy! Like, why did you even do that?" Like, and I've just always as a kid, like I got bullied a little bit, and I always just stood up for myself, and just it's one of those things where I want to fight people don't think I can beat, and I want to prove them wrong. So just something inside me where when you're in there and you're fighting, it's the most freedom you can feel. You have 15 minutes or 25 minutes to just let loose and be as primal and as aggressive and as violent as you can be. And it's so fun, but at the same time, as I said in that post, it's the highest highs and it's the lowest lows, and I don't wish that upon anyone, because when you go lay down at the end of the night and your legs are micro shattered and your face is bruised and your ice in your face, and it's not a life for everyone. So
yeah, and to the point of always facing like really tough customers, I mean that's really always been the case for sure. Like even the first time we were getting ready to talk, you were getting ready to fight Blake Sigvaldason at Rise FC 6, and I mean Blake has such great experience, like captured that XFFC belt prior to that and everything. So yeah, always definitely looking to test yourself, it seems.
Yeah, always. Even as an amateur, I fought 4 out of the top 5 fighters in Canada, and one of them I won for the belt as an amateur right before I went pro, and he was someone that was ranked number 3 in Canada at that point, and I went in there and I submitted him, which was a shock to a lot of people, but it wasn't a shock to me because I know how hard and how much effort I put into this sport, and everyone in the training room and everyone that I train with, they know that I'm a banger and I'm meant to do this. But at the end of the day, despite being meant to do this, I have to string some wins together so I can get to a major promotion, and it starts on the 1st.
Yeah, and it's curious because it would seem like your idea for a quote-unquote major promotion isn't even just in the realm of mixed martial arts. Like I was seeing you were talking about having a bit of dialogue with BKFC and maybe being interested in a bare-knuckle boxing matchup. So it seems like a lot is on the horizon, potentially.
Yeah, I've been talking back and forth with a couple of their matchmakers, and even right before COVID, I was offered a bare knuckle fight I was going to go down for, and it didn't work out because then COVID hit. But bare knuckle is as primal as it gets, and the intensity and the anxiety that would go behind a bare knuckle fight is something that really entertains me. But at the same time, I have some work to do in MMA first, but bare knuckle is something you will 100% see me doing before I'm done.
Well, it's interesting just the timing, too, because I talked to BKFC promoter Dave Feldman a little bit ago, and he was saying he was targeting a Canadian show like early 2023 almost. And I feel like just based on how like a lot of the regulatory bodies are laid out, it'd probably be like, Southern Alberta, maybe, like that kind of vibe. So yeah, interesting time for sure.
Oh, that would be wicked. Hopefully that happens.
Yeah, but something that I kind of wanted to touch on there, because I mean it's an interesting time, like you mentioned, like just the last few fights like not necessarily going the way in like the winner loser binary per se, but I would feel like in a way you'd be appreciative of like the strength of schedule, getting to get out there as much as you could, just like with the backdrop of us talking previously and just all the pandemic restrictions and the inactivity for a while. Like you were describing it as like a very frustrating time, if not one of the more like difficult times of your life. So is there that interesting kind of almost gratitude dynamic where you get to compete and kind of refine those skills, and there's a little more activity than the dormant period previous?
In an ideal world, man, I fight every month, and the way my body's built, the way I'm durable, I would, and would love to fight every month or every 2 months. And lately I've been very active. And Tim Tamaki is one of those kind of guys too, where he's almost like 50 fights. He's somebody that doesn't pull out of fights, and even in some of my previous fights, I was close to almost having to make that call with injuries and things like that. But it takes a lot for me to have to pull out of a fight because I just love it so much. And I know that's not the most intelligent thing, but at the end of the day, real fighters fight, and fighting is not ideal. So when people want to go into a fight with ideal situations, pick a different sport, because fighting is not ideal. You're going to go into fights not 100%, especially if you're training for it. Injuries happen all the time, bumps and bruises happen all the time, and no more than in fighting. So I'm a real fighter. Tim Tamaki is a real fighter, and that's why we have as many fights as we do. Tim's obviously a lot older, and I look up to people like that, people that are like legends in Canada, people that are just known for being scrappy warriors, and Tim's no different.
Yeah, well, I mean, you articulated it well in a post you had previously about it. Like, you were saying, oh, he made his pro debut in 2004. Like, I was still in elementary school, but I thought it was kind of funny. Like, you're like, oh, well, whatever. I was fighting back then. Like, when I saw the matchup got announced, I mean, I thought it was just like, you know, a fireworks-based kind of fight just on paper. So, I mean, I would think that you were feeling the same kind of vibes based on how you're kind of explaining things now.
Oh, it's one of those fights that you wake up differently. I go to sleep differently. I wake up differently. I've cleaned up a few things in my life because I'm treating him with all the respect in the world, because with that being said, though I'm treating him with all the respect in the world on how I'm training and how I'm preparing for him, come the first, when we lock that door, we're going to go try to kill each other. And when you fight Tim, you know he's going to try to kill you. So that makes for an exciting fight. Some people you fight and you can get out and you don't even have a black eye. You're not hurt at all. It's a different kind of fight. But with Tim, you know you're going to be in there against somebody who in every single position is going to be trying to hit you and elbow you and cut you and hurt you. And his last fight, though it's been a few years because of COVID, his last fight was against Chris Day, and Chris Day is a stud. So that you have to respect someone that beat Chris Day. So
yeah, I mean, his resume is just so deep in a lot of different regards. I mean, definitely reads like a who's who of the scene in a lot of ways, and kind of a curious bit of connectivity too, just with, like, you know, Sean Albrecht being such a great MMA mind and helping with, like, the wall wrestling and your jiu-jitsu. And, you know, he previously fought against Tim Tamaki back in, like, August 2009, so a lot of cool connections.
Yeah, he fought Fab, he fought Sean. I went through his resume, and you just see these guys he fights at different weight divisions, at different champions from different leagues, and he's lost against maybe people he shouldn't have, and he's beat people that maybe he shouldn't have. And, like, the thing that I respect most about Tim, because as a fighter coming off a few losses, a lot of fighters, they have a loss or two losses, and they retire. They don't fight again because of their ego. They don't fight again because people want to win. Of course, everyone wants to win, but real fighters are someone that can overcome a loss or losses and come back and still fight and come back and become a better version of themselves. And if you don't kill me, then I am going to be better and I'm going to be stronger next time. And for all the people that fought me, win or loss, you knew you were in a fight, and if you fought me now, it's a different person, because I'm not the same person I was before. My coaches don't allow me to be the same person, and I'm constantly growing, and the people around me push me so very hard, and I'm just so excited to have the team I do around me, the coaches and the teammates pushing me to be better than I was before, and you're going to see another new version of myself on the first.
Yeah, and you talk about some of those people you've got to hone skills with there. It seems like you've gotten in some great work with guys like, Bryce Goujon and Tristan Connolly per the Instagram there, and some great mentorship, as I said, with like Sean Elbrick and also Dennis Kang. Are those like the primary kind of minds and I guess bodies too you've been working with in this camp here?
Yeah, and with Jay Johnsey with WKX and Dennis Kang and Ascension Martial Arts with Sean Elbrick. Really, I've been putting a lot of work in with Dennis this camp because Dennis is the coach coming out to help me, and he really focuses mostly on my MMA. And grappling is all Sean, and wall wrestling is with Sean as well. But the change with WKX in these last few months and the training I get with Josh Johnson, a world champion kickboxer, and Jay Johnsey is just such a beautiful mind for fighting. Because it's different. It's like their intensity they bring to their training room, the intensity they bring to each session. Like even today at WKX practice in the morning, it felt like a scene out of Floyd Mayweather's, when they have those fights in their boxing gym where they like put $1,000 down and the atmosphere changes and they're like some hungry dogs fighting. Well, we have a lot of fighters for WKX fighting soon, and the rounds today were just something out of a movie where it's just like the intensity it's not normal. It's a beautiful intensity, and I'm a very intense person, and the fit with WKX has been fantastic for my striking.
Yeah, it seems like there's a good, like, kind of curated sort of dynamic with, like, the personal life kind of, undulating with the fight career progression, too. Like, it seems like you and Isaiah met a tuck of a fun time over there at the Fader Fight House and all. It's
he's just one of my roommates now, and he's a great teammate. He's a great young pro fighter. I have another fighter in my house, Flint. He fights for BFL as an amateur, and this is all I do. Maybe it's not ideal to live with multiple fighters in one house. Maybe it's not everyone's ideal life, but I'm making sacrifices every day so that my fighting is number one, and my fighting is getting better, and you got to live with other fighters. You got to eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff. And me and Isaiah, we definitely poke the bear all the time, but we're constantly grinding. We just trained, and we're constantly watching film. We're constantly breaking each other's opponents down. We're keeping each other in check. And when you live with other fighters, you can't get away with shit. So I'm grateful to have my roommates, and I'm grateful to have the support I do. And it's all, my whole life revolves around fighting. So when anyone who knows me knows that it's family first, fighting, and then everything else is secondary.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good way to kind of outline the whole thing, no doubt. But yeah, I mean, I would think it would be good in as far as like you said, being able to keep each other in check, inspire each other on maybe organic days that pop up where maybe the motivation isn't as high as maybe other days and stuff like that. Just I feel like that sense of understanding and kind of being on like the same sort of path would be a good dynamic in the downtime too.
Oh, 100%. It's the best. I don't go out. I don't party. I don't do anything. I just fight, teach, repeat, and it's a beautiful life. And this last 6 months, 8 months has been like the happiest I've ever been, despite the losses, despite everything, because I'm just coaching martial arts, fighting, and training, and that's the life I've always wanted. It took me a long time to get to this point, and finally I'm making a living off of what I love to do. But at the same time, as I said, I want to get my ass into a major organization so that fighting for a real prize, But fighting against Tim and that rumble in the cage belt is all the prize and all the motivation I need for the first.
Yeah, and we did talk about, BKFC earlier, but in more of like an MMA context, like you're talking about a big league, big platform sort of thing. What would that represent to you? Do you have a particularly mapped out platform you'd like to get to, or really just like whatever kind of pops up? Because it seems like a great landscape with like, PFL, UFC, ONE, Bellator, etc.
I think I want to fight for everyone, really, except for ONE. I don't really want to go all the way to Singapore every time for a fight, and it seems like they care a little bit more about the Asian market rather than Canadian. So everyone besides one, I'm of Polish descent, so KSW would be amazing, and I hear they pay great. But Bellator or UFC is obviously everyone's, number one goal, and PFL is another great option. But right before the pandemic, when I was 5-2, as I was preparing to fight David Moon, or 4-2, or whatever it was, I was going to fight David Moon, and the winner of that fight was going to be on the Contender Series. And then COVID happened, and then life takes you the way it does. But if I string a couple wins, or when I string a couple wins together, finish a few people, perhaps you'll see me on the next season of Contender Series, or maybe you'll see me on a local Bellator show. So that's my goal.
Yeah, for sure. Some exciting sort of future aspirations, but, as we've been talking about, very much want to be looking at this next one here. And one of the last things I wanted to touch on, because I was actually talking to Lee Meehan the other day, and I was saying to him, like, hey, the Rumble in the Cage sort of dynamic looks a lot smaller than a lot of the other cages that I've seen in my life. Are my eyes deceiving me there? And he's like, oh, no, it's definitely one of the more compact cages that there is out there nowadays in MMA. I feel like based on the fight style that you and Tim have, that would really lend itself to the styles both of you guys have, and just the high finishing rate that's associated with, like, the Rumble in the Cage, cage, and, like, the small dimensions of it. Like, do you foresee that kind of, like, lending itself favorably to your style? Do you think it could even, like, lead to a finish against a very durable opponent here? Like, what do you think about the, I guess, dimensions of the Rumble in the Cage?
You could put me in a mailbox or a phone booth. I really don't care. You could tie our legs together and I'd scrap them out. So, some people like taking a backward step. Me and Tim, I don't know if we go back much at all. So, I know I'm only gonna have like arm's reach away from the guy, but I don't want to be much further from him anyway. So, you're gonna see a very violent main event. And I know Tim's very durable. His nickname is the Chin, so that says something in itself. But you're going to see two hungry people go into that cage, the main event, and we are the show. We're gonna blow the roof off that building or that venue, because Lethbridge is a real fight town. Lethbridge loves fighters, and I know they won't be cheering for me, but I know after the fight they're all going to respect me. So I have nothing but high hopes for the first, and I know if you tune in to watch that fight, everyone is going to be entertained. So
yeah, it's going to be a very intriguing one for sure, no doubt. But I do want to be mindful of your time and the rest of your schedule, Josh. So to that point, is there maybe anything you might want to add as a parting thought as we're kind of wrapping up here, man?
Thank you. Well, thank you for your time too. And again, always I appreciate anyone that gives fighters a voice. I don't know how fighters don't get more love in Canada. Like when I had my first fight in Brazil, it was my first pro fight, and I was walking down the streets with a little bit of cauliflower ear, and people were coming up to me like I was famous. And it's incredible to see how some countries treat their fighters. And I know Canada will go more that direction. So I just want to thank you, but I also want to thank my team, Pinnacle Martial Arts, Ascension Martial Arts, and WKX. I want to thank my strength and conditioning coach, Ibby, with New Edge Alliance. He's a beast. And all my teammates that just constantly try to kill me, try to push me, and support me. And I also want to have a shout-out to the gyms I coach at, Evolve and Animo. And really, I'm just so grateful for the life I live. I'm grateful for the opportunity to fight. And you're going to see a lot more of me this next year. But it starts with October 1st against Tim the Chin Tamaki. And I can't wait to feel that man's belt.
It's going to be an awesome featherweight championship fight at Rumble in the Cage's 63rd event. Such a great show all the time there. Canada's longest running show and everything like that as far as mixed martial arts. So respect the longevity and the resume and everything like that. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on the show ahead of what promises to be a very exciting fight there, Josh. I do appreciate that, and looking forward to peeping the fight when it goes down, and just hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day as well there, man.
Okay, thank you